it's Dakota, and today I'm going to be going over the rare land cycle that we got in Ikoria, Lair of the Behemoth. And it's kind of sweet because it's something that we haven't seen before. This is a completely new cycle that we've gotten, and funny that I can say cycle because they are three color or tricolored, whatever you want to call them, cycle lands that we have in Ikoria. So this is the cons cycle. We have the Abzan, Teamer, Jeskai, Mardu, and Sultai color combinations. Something that's really cool about these three color cycle lands is that they have the basic land types on them, obviously corresponding to their wedge. So like the Abzan one is Plain Swamp Forest, the Teamer being Forest Island Mountain, so on and so forth. So what's cool and what's special about these? Um, Something that's kind of sweet, but probably won't come up very often. I would imagine being able to fetch for these lands with the like Zendikar and like the Onslaught fetch lands, mainly because in formats like Modern and Legacy, Vintage, all those kind of formats, like these lands really aren't going to be used to be fetched up. They're more than likely going to be used, for what they are, like to cycle them. And that's kind of like what cycling as a mechanic is good for, is that even when like these cards aren't necessarily all that great, they do uh, turn into another card essentially. They let you dig a little bit deeper into your deck. So that's something that in like those older formats, it's going to be more as like a land that can cycle. And even then, like the two color cycle lands are probably better because they cycle for one less. With the fixing not nearly being nearly as important when you can play so many fetch lands and play a number of dual lands that come into play untapped without paying life. And then obviously, if you need more duels of like a certain color, then you can just play the Ravnica Shock lands. So I think in like the older formats, like it's not going to be super relevant. They're even for like cycling and stuff like that. Again, like the two color cycle lands that we got in Amine Cat will probably be more playable than these ones, being that they cost three to cycle. But looking at like Pioneer and Standard, it's going to make three and four color decks a lot easier to play because of the fact that you get so much more fixing in the format. Maybe not so much so with the like four color decks, because the four color decks still have the problem of like getting your mana to line up and things like that. But with these three color decks, at least in the cons block like wedges, your mana is going to get a lot better because obviously you have a tri-land that gives you additional value aside from like the old, like the actual cons like tri-lands, like not Mystic Sanctuary, like Sandstep Citadel and those kinds of lands. They also come into play tapped, like these do. These will always come into play tapped, but these give you the additional value of being able to cycle into something else. And I can see like in Sultai Delirium being like one of the major decks in Pioneer, playing at least one or two of the Zagoth Triome, just because it's an easier way for them to. It's another way that they can get a land into the graveyard, draws a card as well, which is really good when you have just a ton of mana. And of course, like the fixing is really good too, playing this on like turn one or turn two, just to set you up and get you all your colors of mana, especially making it a little bit easier to cast Uro, considering this and Kitria Triome, the Teamer Triland, are ways that you can get double green and double blue to cast Uro from your graveyard. So, and of course for standard, like this is just great fixing. Sucks that they're at rare, obviously, because they're gonna cost you rare wild cards. But aside from that, just the three color fixing coming to play tap really doesn't matter. And then again, like the cycling, which really makes these really good. Again, all things considered, because they can just turn into different cards when you don't need to hit a land drop. You might want to be dig for a spell, so like investing three mana to like draw a card, uh, and then also probably put cards in your graveyard to be able to cast Uro, things like that, or even like escape like Croxa or something like that. Just another way to get cards in the graveyard for your escape cards. Another way to just rip through your library. When you just have a ton of mana and nothing to really do with it, these just turn into different cards later. Overall, how do I feel about these? I think they're going to be pretty good, all things considered. I think Standard and Pioneer are probably the formats really that like WotC really want to push. Obviously Standard being like their biggest one because there's a set that comes out for it every 3 to 4 months. Uh, Pioneer being obviously their new non-rotating format that they introduced back in, I believe, November, beginning of December, sometime in that area. And these cards are just going to be really good for it. Again, the fact that we get another set of like cycling lands in Pioneer, that we get cycling back in Standard, really just helps with like ensuring that you hit land drops, that you have your colors mana that you're looking for. It makes 3 color decks possible, which are some of the most interesting combinations. And even though 3 color decks were really working with obviously just the shock lands that we had in Ravnica and the Temple Cycle that we got in Magic Core set 20 and in the Theros set, this will just make mana bases a little bit more consistent. And the fact that, they're just not regular tri lands, that they do cycle and all those great things, again, just make it really, really good. Just to turn into cards later with some of the decks that just plan to go big, like the like even like the Bant ramp, and like I'm sure we'll see some like Teamer ramp and like Sultai ramp and things like that get a little bit better because they will have they will be able to play Uro with some consistency with these lands, and then obviously turning these lands into extra extra card draw is really sweet. But yeah, that's how I feel. That's my thoughts and opinions on this Triland set, just in Magic as a whole. For competitive play, they're probably going to see more play in the newer formats and the newer non-rotating format, and then the Standard. Probably not so much in the older formats. And then just for Magic in general, like the Commander players, the kitchen table casual players and stuff, these lands are just going to be great because if you do play with fetch lands, you can get them color fix very easily, turn into cards later, all that fun fancy stuff, and this special art that comes in the collector's booster packs and things like that. These are really sweet, just very unique lands because this is the first time that we're ever seeing these. Was it going to happen eventually? Probably was, but finally they're doing it, and in a set like Ikoria, Land of the Behemoths, it's just really sweet, and I like them personally. But that's how I feel. That's my thoughts and opinions. If you have any different opinions on these, maybe they're going to see more play in the older formats, less play, anything like that, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will try to respond to you as quick as possible. I hope you guys enjoy videos like this. Be on the lookout for more. Going to be getting back into like a normal routine next week, obviously, as we get deck lists for Standard from new like Ikoria Standard week 1. Those are going to be some fun lists to like look through and things like that. Modern and Pioneer changing because of like the far-reaching effects that Ikoria is going to have on all the formats in general. Maybe not just from the land cycle, but from like the creatures, enchantments, and things like that. So it'd be pretty sweet to see. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.